And welcome in, everybody, to It's Official. Jeremy Plonk, Jeff Siegel, back with you. Happy to be back in the saddle thanks to the cardiac care unit at Lehigh Valley Cedar Crest Hospital. Thank you to the staff there getting me put back together after a couple weeks off. Jeff, it's good to be back with you and talk some horse racing.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. Missed last couple of weeks for R&R, but you look great. So I'm sure you're going to be great at picking up where you left off, and hopefully the viewers and the listeners will enjoy what we have to say. If you're going to have to take time off right in the middle, it was like halftime of racing anyway, right?
That's right.
Before Saratoga and Del Mar, but after Belmont and Santa Anita had closed, so took a good time. But we got lots to talk about today because Saratoga is already in going now and had a few days. Del Mar opens up, and we got some very important racing to talk about, not only here but across the pond. In England, we saw incredible performances by two colts. I'm not sure if we'll see them on Breeders' Cup Day, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Saratoga's been full of cliches for centuries, right? It's the August place to be, but now it's the July through September place to be. And it's also been known for almost a century as the graveyard of favorites. And it was back to its old ways on opening weekend. It's the graveyard smash, and with apologies to Bobby Pickett and the Crypt Kickers, Jeff, going back to the Monster Bash days with this one. Jeff, the graveyard of favorites reared its head this past weekend. 7 stakes races opening week at Saratoga, just one favorite delivering on Sunday. Some big favorites went down. Look, it was 41% winning favorites for the week, but in the races where people were really paying attention, down went the chalk.
Wow, and short chalk too. What kind of odds could you have gotten on a prop bet if you said, I don't know who's going to win, but both In Italian and Gold Sweep are going to lose 1-5? You probably would have gotten pretty good odds there. Uncashed finally broke the streak, but he had to wait for the rains to wash the race off the turf, and he was the only dirt horse in the race. He almost had to win, and he did. I'm sure if that race had stayed on grass, it would have been a lot more difficult. But what we saw, I think, really, at least my thinking of it, Jeremy, was that many of those races were weather-related. In other words, soft ground, wet tracks. These are things that can cause upsets, even if you don't think they will. But it just goes to show you, it's Saratoga. If we didn't remember what Saratoga was like, we were reminded the first 4 days of the meeting, actually the first 3, when we had the craziest of results and a lot of horses that couldn't lose lost.
I've spent a lot of time at the spa over the summer over the years, and these afternoon thunderstorms are just part of it. You have to handicap for it. You have to look at versatile situations, races on and off, sequences that start with turf races, and by the time we get to the last leg of the pick 5 are no longer on the turf. It's just part of the necessary handicapping puzzle. Jeff, when we got to the Diana on Saturday, though, the conditions weren't terrible at all in any stretch of the imagination for In Italian. Chad Brown had almost all the field. I think he had 4 of the 5 starters, and everybody expected In Italian just to control the race from the outset. And she was able to do that, but couldn't punch home. Let's watch the replay, her stablemate who upsets her, and get your take on White Beam's victory in the Diana.
White Beam firing a big shot on the outside of In Italian. In Italian a length. White Beam on the outside, market segmentation, trying to get by Fev Rover for 3rd. Coming to the 16th pole. In Italian set down. White Beam trying to get her. In Italian ahead. White Beam. Big effort from Fev Rover. In Italian. White Beam a final try. White Beam in Italian in a photo finish in the Diana. Fev Rover a solid 3rd. Chad Brown wins the Diana for the 8th time.
That was about the only certainty that we knew. Chad Brown was going to win the Diana for the 8th time with 4 of the 5 entrants in there. But White Beam, what about this mare? Winning the Gallarette before the Preakness card, nobody really had known much about her at all. She came over from France. Of course, she wears those Juddmonte colors. White Beam, how serious is she?
I think she's serious, and I think she's probably not being given enough credit for winning and beating an Italian who did make the lead. And I think the course was probably 10 lengths slow, which may or may not have impacted In Italian. It looked like when she wanted to re-break, as she often does. She did, but she was kind of laboring a little bit. And White Beam, who was glued onto her, just stayed on so bravely and won it. But if you look at White Beam, loved her winning the Gallarette. Obviously, that's not beating an Italian, but loved that race and her form in England and actually France, and then before that in England wasn't great, but it had an improving pattern. And then, Chad Brown has a right to get these and do better. I think White Beam is good. Now, I don't know whether she'll beat an Italian ever again, especially if the ground is pretty firm, but it does show you that maybe in Italian is a little bit invincible, and it maybe gives you a little bit of a pause as to whether or not you want to take 1-5 next time out when she runs. But I think both of those two ran very well. And Fevrover, who threw a fit in the gate and had to be reloaded. I mean, what kind of race did she run? I mean, that was a terrific race for her, for Mark Cassey, coming down from Woodbine, where she'd won the Nassau in her 5-year-old debut. And there's nothing flukish about her. And she was another one. She was she was third in the Guineas as a 3-year-old over at Newmarket. You got to be able to run to do that. So that was a legitimate race, and it shows you the strength of the entire division back there. Much, much stronger, obviously, in New York than it would be here in California.
Not this race as any kind of determinant of that, but when you talk about in Italian, Jeff, are you still more the mile for her when you look at a Breeders' Cup division, or do you want to take her a little bit longer to the Filly and Mare Turf at Santa Anita? Of course, would be down the hill.
No, she's a miler. I mean, she showed me in this race that as good as and as great as she is, you can chip away at that as you add a little bit more ground to the distance, and now at a mile, and now even a mile and a quarter. Yeah, it is a little down. It is downhill the first part, but still, it's a mile and a quarter. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that Chad's gonna, if he runs her in the Breeders' Cup, he's going to be doing it against the boys going a mile, and I think you'll see that pattern show up.
Right. A couple of those boys who will be awaiting the mile likely by the end of the year were in action at Saratoga in the Kelso, where Annapolis has kind of been towards the top of the division here, was, well backed in the Breeders' Cup mile last year at Keeneland, has run well this year. Annapolis expected to punch out the Kelso field, but the turf sprinter / miler, the 7-year-old Casa Creed, did not make it an easy task. Let's go back to the Kelso at the Spa opening weekend.
Casa Creed is called on. He's coming with a 3-wide bid. Annapolis will go even wider. Whitecap far outside as the field turns for home. It's still Big Everest clinging to a narrow lead. Casa Creed right to him on the inside. English B. Farther back, Annapolis has a lot of work to do. Casa Creed, a 2-length lead coming to the 16th pole. Annapolis finding his best stride, but it's Casa Creed. Casa Creed, what a classy individual, wins the Kelso.
Casa Creed's been to the Breeders' Cup 3 times unsuccessfully to this point, finishing off the board each time. But we know he likes Saratoga as much as Frank Miramati, the new voice there, likes pizza. I mean, it's a match made in heaven, Casa Creed at Saratoga. Is it just the horse for course, Jeff, or is this 7-year-old with 32 career starts just continuing to get better?
No, I think it's probably the horse for course and the given the ground. If you watch that race closely, Annapolis was laboring in the final 16th, and they ran around 10 lengths slower than they normally would. And Annapolis launched his bid wide. Tough way to win at Saratoga that way on the grass. And when he got to Casa Creed, he was absolutely spent in the final 50 yards or so. Casa Creed, of course, won the 4-star Dave over this course when he beat the mare Regal Glory, who we all thought couldn't lose, and she did in that race. So I think you got to probably assume that it was the Saratoga. I think, and you got to play that horse for course theory. You just have to. I mean, you're gonna. There are certain explanations that only lend itself to, hey, he's won here before, let's do it again, type of thing. And what was surprising though was how many people thought that Casa Creed would be in front of Annapolis at the top of the stretch.
Yeah, right.
That kind of got reversed a little bit, but I would think Casa Creed will be tough. I don't know whether he'll have that same form if they bring him out here for the Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita, but we'll see. And I think Annapolis has only had now 10 starts with 6 wins. I think he's certainly capable of bouncing back. That was not his best race, but on fast ground, I think you'll see it next time.
So I had to look at a couple of turf performances from Saratoga opening weekend. Now we go across the pond to Europe for some Breeders' Cup divisions where Aidan O'Brien has unleashed a new superstar potentially. It's the son of Justify. Let's take a look at City of Troy, a highly impressive 2-year-old running at Newmarket last week in the Superlative Stakes.
And it's City of Troy by a couple of lengths to Great Truth in second, Hartem in third. City of Troy is opening up now, rising up towards the line. City of Troy by 5-6 lengths. City of Troy, worthy of all the superlatives. He comes clear. He could be a future champ. City of Troy by 7, maybe 8.
Son of Justify and Aidan O'Brien, they think the world of him. Here's what he said to Racing TV afterwards.
No, he looks an incredibly special horse. I suppose he is exactly what John wanted Justify to have. He's pure classic bred. He has movement, temperament, speed, stamina. It's all rolled into one. He looks very exciting at the moment. Lydia Ryan gave him a beautiful ride. He was so kind with him, and he went out the gates. He was happy to get a lead or do whatever. He came straight up by himself. Unusual for a horse that hasn't travelled or done anything. Only having one easy run at the Curragh, really. So no, it's over the moon, really.
What might be the plan now? Something like the National Stakes?
Yeah, I think so. He has the Futurity, the National Stakes, the Dewhurst. All those races are all open to him, you know.
Justify, the 2018 Triple Crown winner on the dirt, but he was by Scat Daddy, who most of his best get were on the turf. So it's not surprising to see Justify with a really good turf horse. And of course, he had the Belmont Oaks Invitational winner, her name Aspen Grove, just a couple weeks ago as well. So Justify on the grass, this one here. What do we make of the potential stardom of City of Troy?
And he also, by the way, Justify had a group stakes winner for a 2-year-old filly at Woodbine same day. So not only a great stallion, they run on any surface and they're international. Here's the thing about Justify. I'm looking at his pedigree. It's incredible. I mean, it's as you'd expect out of a stakes winner by Galileo named Together Forever, who was a full sister to Forever Together, who was a fantastic Oaks winner over there, and nothing but black type all the way down. Galileo, theatrical, blushing groom. So he should run as far as any horse will ever want to run. Now, in terms of what he'll end up doing, assuming that he goes about his business and wins the rest of his races this year, you might want to say, okay, what about the Breeders' Cup? Well, here's the thing about Justify. He's a Guineas horse, and they don't usually bring their Guineas horses over here. They would bring their third and fourth string over here, which they feel is good enough to win anyway.
Right.
But here's the thing about Justify. Maybe this is just wishful thinking on my part, but being by Justify and being so great, wouldn't this be the kind of horse they might think about bringing over for the Triple Crown next year? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think so. And with an interest in the stallion and everything to go with that, right? I mean, that's part of the marketing and the advertising and getting him the eyeballs in front of the public that way. Absolutely. I would think that this is the kind of horse that we might be looking at next year towards the Triple Crown for sure. I mean, because you have that versatility, you've got that run all day. And they're going to want to promote, the bloodlines here. And so, yes, I think we could be looking at a horse next year, City of Troy, that would get a lot of buzz, off of this victory, last week. Highly impressive, highly impressive. You don't see 2-year-olds visually look that good, I think, a lot of times overseas. At least I don't. I don't look at them and go, wow, this looks like a really good horse. This obviously looks like a really good horse. Funny
story that Aidan told later on in that interview about how when he broke his maiden first time out, his first start was at the Curragh, and he won that really easily, never even tried to win. He just galloped around there. But the jock couldn't pull him up, and he continued out like a half a mile down towards the next county, wherever.
Some dairy farm in Ireland.
See, so now he runs in this race at Newmarket, and the pull-up, the end of the road, so to speak, is a lot shorter. And Aidan says, I was worried that he would just keep going and run into the fence down there. He couldn't pull him up. Well, he got him stopped in time. But it was his way of saying this was a mile race, and it's uphill at Newmarket and the rally course. So, it's a grueling mile for a 2-year-old in July of his 2-year-old season. I don't think there's going to be any concern about him getting a mile and a quarter next year. Maybe dirt, but we'll find out. But anyway, he is, for people who follow European racing, you're going to hear nothing about this called City of Troy. And I know one thing, I'll be tuning in at 5 a.m. or whatever it is when he runs live next time out, whether it's York or wherever it's going to be. Right. Watch him, because he is going to be an extraordinary colt.
One colt we saw run in sprint races in the big sprint race at Royal Ascot was Shaquille, and he reared at the start, left all chance at the beginning, and rallied to defeat the field. He was back at it again at Newmarket in the Group 1 July Cup also last weekend, and he did the same thing out of the starting gate, but Shaq had a couple fouls to play with, if you will, and made up all the ground and more in the July Cup. Take a look.
Shaquille now making rapid headway, going up into second, chasing Art Power now, and at the back is Run to Freedom as they race through the first quarter mile, and Shaquille taking off to join Art Power. They're followed then by Kinross, now moving into third place. Vadream, Little Big Bear, Azure Blue on the near side, Run to Freedom and Cardem as they race on now towards the final two furlongs, and Shaquille quickly recovered the ground after a slow start, but he's being pushed along. Art Power, here's Azure Blue on the left, running on well from Vadream, then Run to Freedom, Kinross, and behind these Cardam, Little Big Bear is well beaten off. Shaquille leads the way up the hill inside the final furlong. It's Shaquille who leads. Run to Freedom running a big race from Kinross, and then Art Power, but Shaquille muscling home, and he's clear by 2 lengths. The Royal Ascot winner doubles up in the July Cup.
He is going to be a major player, I think, if he comes over here for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, Jeff, because they go down the hill 6.5. It's not that 5.5 at Keeneland where a bad start might throw you out in a Breeders' Cup some years. Down the hill, I don't mind if I'm 4, 5, 6, 8 lengths off the lead. You can come with a big rally down the hill at Santa Anita. I'd love to see him come over here. Shaquille, very interesting. And we could do a little bit promotionally with Shaquille coming over to LA for the Breeders' Cup, couldn't we?
The connections haven't talked about coming over for the Breeders' Cup, but if I'm on a Breeders' Cup committee, I am hustling him like tomorrow. Yeah. What can we do for you? How can we get you over here? It's 6.5. I mean, I don't know. You can say, well, I don't know if he wants to go 6.5. He says it's downhill. It'll go 6.5. He'll roll down the hill. It doesn't matter. He would be a very popular horse. The thing about the Royal Ascot race, when he broke poorly that day, he looked like he was kind of unprepared. And I think he just missed the break just because he was looking around. They don't have handlers in the gate there, and if, you could spring it at the wrong time. Okay, that can happen. This time he actually came out of the gate. The only problem is he went straight in the air. He went up. So he wanted to break fast. He just he was all messed up. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll prove to be this way, but I don't think he's going to prove to be an habitual bad breaker. I think we just caught him on 2 bad days. But in the meantime, for him to be able to win that day, I mean, I heaven help the opposition if he ever does break. Because man, I mean, I tweeted this last week. I said it's almost like he's breaking badly on purpose just to make it fair.
Right. Give him a little shot there. Yeah.
Exactly. Just to make it interesting, make it challenging, So I don't know. I sure hope Shaquille holds his form. He won't be over-raced on the connections. Low profile for sure. Mm-hmm. They're not going to do anything stupid. They'll probably run him 2 or 3 times. And then hopefully somebody can put the Breeders' Cup into their mind, because if he comes down here at Santa Anita, you're right. I mean, he will be a very popular horse, not only based on the name, of course, but the fact that looks like an incredible sprinter. Right. People like to see top-class horses running races like this.
There aren't many 7-figure sprint races around the world, right? I mean, that kind of purse money, the Breeders' Cup Sprint becomes more and more attractive maybe by season's end. Even if they're not talking about it now, you got to get in their ear, like you said.
Put it this way, I would make it worth their while. Let's put it that way. Need I say less or more?
2 international horses of intrigue, City of Troy and Shaquille, last week at Newmarket. Now let's talk about some New Jersey potential runners going to the Jersey Shore this weekend. Well, we think, but we're not sure, on the field for the Haskell. They'll draw that on Wednesday for Saturday. And the Kentucky Derby winner, Mage, is still on the fence as of the recording of this podcast. By the time you listen or watch, maybe we'll know about Mage. The decision was supposed to come today on Tuesday on whether the Kentucky Derby winner and Preakness 3rd place finisher would make his first post-Preakness start in the Haskell on Saturday at Monmouth Park, going the 1.8 miles for the $1 million. If Mage isn't in there, the headline goes where, Jeff Siegel? Because Arabian Night, he's back off a January layoff. Tappet Trice, third in the Belmont Stakes. The Speedsters Go Rocket Ride and Extra Anejo. The locals Salute the Star and How Great is Nate? Obviously, the headliner is Mage if he goes, but if he doesn't, tell me the storyline for this year's Haskell.
Well, I would say that if I were trying to insert my influence here, which is to say, if somebody asked me my opinion, I would quote my late friend Julio Canati, who would say, when he looked at a race like this, "You're a closer. There's 50 speeds in the race. You go." And wouldn't this race kind of set up for Mage if it did? Because, I mean, you got horses like Arabian Night, who won his first start by 7 at Keeneland. Remember his great race on Breeders' Cup Day, came back and was very impressive winning the Southwest. You've got other horses in here like Extra Anejo. I mean, he's maybe not a dyed-in-the-wool leader, but he's fast. He can for sure. And Go Rocket Ride can be fast, but he can rate too. So, but that would set things up nicely for Mage. He'd fall out of the gate and sit third or fourth, and then make his run. This looks like a very, very good addition, especially since we've got horses like Extra Anejo and like Bob's horse Arabian Night and Go Rocket Ride. These aren't horses that we think we know what they can do. We don't know what they can do. They are high potential types, and I'm convinced we haven't seen the best of them. And maybe we will see the best of them, or one of them, or all of them on Saturday.
And sometimes in the Haskell, we get those proven commodities, right? The Point Givens, the horses that have been through the War Emblems, that kind of deal like that, through the Triple Crown. And then sometimes it's the Dixie Unions and horses like that are just kind of, they're fast, they're brilliant. This is their time to pop and shine. They weren't Triple Crown horses. So is that Extra Anejo and Go Rocket Ride, or do we fit back into the classic mold of a Triple Crown horse like the Tappet Trice or Mage, if Mage is back in this race on Saturday? My gut feeling tells me, and I'm probably going out on a limb, which anytime you do, you probably end up being wrong, just Murphy's Law. But I just get the feeling if Mage was committed and doing super well right now to run in the Haskell, I think we'd already know it. They'd have said, this is the goal, this is the destination, and this is where they're going. The fact that their plan B is not even the Jim Dandy, but rather just train right up to the Travers, tells me that gives me more time. And I think they'll just train up to the Travers. That's my gut feeling. And if they're not in this race, then Jeff Siegel, where does the favoritism lie? Could it be the horse who's been off since January in the Southwest? Arabian Night. Let's let fans remember who he might be, being it's been over 6 months since we've seen him on the track.
Arabian Night, a length in front of Frosted Departure in second. Here is Red Route 1 erupting from the back of the pack, but he is still 6 lengths behind this front-running favorite, Arabian Night. And now he's 4 in front. Red Route 1 might get second. He will not win the Southwest. That winner is Arabian Night.
I would think 2 for 2. It's Baffert. Baffert has been just, a blazer in the Haskell historically over the years. I would assume that's where the favoritism would go.
I would expect that to be true too. It's got the aura of Baffert, undefeated. When he won the race, first race we remember last year on Breeders' Cup Day was incredible. Comes back and wins the Southwest. I think most people conceded that he probably was the best 3-year-old in the country. Maybe Forte, but this colt, was certainly right up there. But it wasn't long after this race that he was put away. I don't think it may not have been more than 10 days where it was announced he's off the Derby trail. So we never really had a chance to compare it. Well, now he's back. And if you remember what many people thought about him at the time after this win, you'd have to say that he'll probably be the favorite, especially when you look at the work tab, 124-3, 125, 124. I mean, he's been trained to win like now. And I know that Bob could have run Arabian Lion, who we all think now is among the very best based on his recent form.
Right.
But he opted to run Arabian Night instead of Arabian Lion, and Arabian Lion is fit to run. He's just looking for a place to go now. So that tells me that at least Bob thinks Arabian Night is back where he was, maybe even better, and quick enough to maybe establish the lead here and let the other ones chase him. And it's not easy to win this at this distance off the layoff, but I think that's what Baffert thinks of Arabian Night. And I kind of hope he goes out there and runs well, or any of these run really well. We could use another shooter in the division, so to speak. And we'll find out what emerges from what is an incredibly interesting edition of the Haskell.
And as far as comebacks go, we could see another comeback from a filly we haven't seen in quite some time as we go to our Breeders' Cup tracker next. Her name is Nest, and she was as good as anybody in the Distaff division last year across North America, but she hasn't been out to the races since last year's Breeders' Cup. Jeff Nest has put together a long set of workouts for her return, expected to come Sunday at Saratoga in the Shoe V. Here's her in company working with a stablemate at the spa. Tell us what you see from Nest and what we might expect in her return.
Well, first of all, that maiden on the inside is named Onlooker, an unraced daughter of Street Sense, who hasn't done anything in the morning that would indicate that she's anything great. Maybe she is. I thought Nest was niggled at just a little bit to kind of stay even with this outclassed maiden, who apparently wasn't all that outclassed, because you can see in the gallop out here, I mean, she's more than holding her own on the rail over Nest. And, this was Nest's 10th workout in her series. She's still being chirped at a little bit here. And I don't know. To me, she's not pulling the rider anywhere, if you know what I mean, Jeremy. And I just wonder if she's just lazy, or maybe she's just not as good as she is now as she used to be. I don't know. I know that we remember what her form was last year at Saratoga when the CCA Oaks in the Alabama by I don't know how many combined lengths, but it might have been almost 30. So we know how good she was then. Now we have not seen her since the Breeders' Cup when she was beaten and got beaten obviously on the square, but by obviously a good filly, a terrific filly. Right. So I don't know where she's at, but I can tell you one thing: if she's not as good as she was last year, I don't think she beats Clairiere, who actually, if memory serves, finished ahead of her actually in the Breeders' Cup filly and mare distaff last year. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see where Nest is. You know what I think of her on her best day? She's incredible. But Clairiere has already won 2 graded stakes, 2 grade ones this year. Yep. You don't beat Clairiere unless you're 100%. And based on what I just saw that workout, I'm just not sure.
Yeah, Clairiere coming in the exact same pattern from the Apple Blossom, the prep race to the Phipps, and then in here to the Shoe V. You say, why are you running grade 2? It's Saratoga, and she's run well over the track there, Clairiere, and this is the same pattern they used last year, and she got to the Breeders' Cup in great form a year ago. So you are going to have your running shoes on to beat Clairiere in her current form right now. And for Nest coming off that long layoff, off workouts that just don't jump off the screen at you, she's up against it. I think when she returns on Sunday, will be fun to have her back, though. We want to see how she performs and maybe get another start. I mean, really, looking at the timing, we're already into July and we're at the beginning of the Saratoga meet. Maybe she runs one more time before the Breeders' Cup. You're not going to get a lot out of Nest. Maybe she goes to the Spinster at Keeneland or many other races that you could run in New York throughout the course of the fall to lead into the Breeders' Cup. But there's not going to be a lot of performances for Nest between now and the Breeders' Cup distaff. I mean, this and probably one more the way the timing works out. Now, as far as the timing goes this weekend, it's opening day at Del Mar on Friday and a big stakes schedule at Del Mar throughout the course of the summer. Get the teals kicked up with Saturday's action. The San Clemente will be for the distaffers on the turf, the 3-year-old fillies. The marathon horses on the dirt will go in the Cougar the second, on Sunday's card. Then the second week of the Del Mar meet will feature the San Diego, the Bing Crosby, and the Eddie Reed. Good weekend there where you're looking at sprinters, you're looking at horses prepping for the Pacific Classic in the San Diego, and of course the top older turf horses in the Eddie Reed. And then the big races for the Del Mar meet, Jeff, coming up will be September 2nd, Pacific Classic Day, and then September 10th to wrap up the meet traditionally with the 2-year-olds in the Del Mar Futurity. It's where the turf meets the surf. I know you'll be heading down to Old Del Mar to probably enjoy some action throughout the course of this summer. Give the fans a little sense of what you're looking for at Del Mar and maybe what you'll be providing at First Bet and Express Bet.
Well, yeah, we'll have full card analysis, race by race analysis for both Saratoga and Del Mar. I've started last weekend with Saratoga. We'll also be doing some video work. I had promised myself not to work that hard, and I realized I'm miserable if I don't work hard. So I'll be doing both tracks throughout the year. Then it's okay because then I'll relax when college football starts. But in the meantime, I'm going at it. Opening day, we covered the first 4 days at Saratoga. Our coverage will continue as it was last weekend. We'll have full card analysis for Del Mar as well. Lots of workouts. We have workouts covered, but both tracks. Very, very important handicapping tool. So looking forward to that, and basically looking forward to the 2-year-olds. I mean, I've got a list of 2-year-olds that I know that Bob's got, and a few of the others have got. Brad Free had an article in the DRF about that, so you can read that as well. That's where the strength of the California circuit is right now. The older division is okay. I mean, it's competitive. I don't know if we've got any slam dunk Breeders' Cup favorites out here in the other divisions, but in the 2-year-olds, you better look out. I can tell you right now, the best, I believe, so far, the best 2-year-olds that I've seen are here in California.
No flight line to just circle and wait for the Pacific Classic this year. We're going to have to earn it in the Pacific Classic from a handicapping standpoint. And we'll get to San Diego in the second week of the meet as a prep towards that Pacific Classic coming up later in September. Okay, so Breeders' Cup tracker this weekend. We're definitely keeping an eye on Saratoga. We're definitely keeping an eye on opening weekend at Del Mar. And certainly we'll have an eye on Haskell Day at Monmouth on Saturday, where they'll also run the United Nations, the Matchmaker, a good undercard, the Monmouth Stakes, big undercard of races for Saturday. I'll be handicapping some pick 4, pick 5 kind of sequences for Monmouth, for Express Bet and First Bet a little bit later in the week. Entries for that Saturday card at Monmouth coming out Wednesday. So we will see the Haskell field. Do we get Mage? Do we not get Mage? We'll be tracking it all in the Breeders' Cup tracker over the next several months here on the show. Okay, fifth and final topic, as it is each and every week. We started this last summer. It was successful. We never stopped. It's the stars of tomorrow. We're looking for debut runners, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds who could have a big future ahead of them. And boy, did we have a big time debut win by Pirate, the half-brother to Preakness winner National Treasure, winning opening weekend at Saratoga. Let's walk the plank with the Pirate at the Spa.
And it's Pirate trying to shake loose, and he's done just that. Pirate opens up at the top of the stretch. It's a 3-length lead. Just Steel, Special Element, second and third with a furlong left to go. Pirate in front. Just Steel trying hard, but he is second best. Smooth sailing through the Saratoga stretch for Pirate, who scores by 3.
Impressive there, and even more impressive, I think, were the sound effects. I don't know if you caught that in the background, but my parrot named Olive, while I was talking about Pirate, started screaming in the background. So if you hear that, I'm not in the tropical rainforest when I do these podcasts. Sometimes I just have a loud parrot, and she took the cue for Pirate there, Jeff. And I'll tell you what, the debut for Pirate, absolutely outstanding.
Absolutely, indeed, and very cleverly named daughter of the mare Treasure. So Pirate wins that, and from the first crop of Omaha Beach, they paid $350 for him as a yearling. So obviously well regarded for top pleasure. Probably didn't beat a whole lot, but acted like a colt that will run on. And I'm not sure how aggressive Todd's going to get with him. He'll probably run him, I would imagine, twice more, maybe once here at the meeting at the end, or maybe around 2 turns eventually. But he's definitely the kind of colt that will do better or should do better longer than shorter. And since he won going 5.5, sprinting from the rail, 75 buyer number is good. Not great, but it's good. Nice starting point. Would allow this colt to maybe develop and then get better as he gets more experience. But wasn't a whole lot to choose from last week because the good 2-year-olds we talked about in California weren't running. They're waiting their turn with the opening day coming up on Friday. But I'm going to make a prediction that our future star, our star of the future from next week, comes from California. I don't know which one, but somebody is out there is going to run real big this weekend out here. I promise you that.
We're expecting that. Pirate probably next up, something like the Hopeful, the Champagne, or the Keeneland for the Breeders' Futurity. This one only costs $350. I say only, but when you're a half brother to the Preakness winner, it was fortuitous timing, right? I mean, from this point forward, a half brother to National Treasure is probably going to bring more than $350. So they might have done well in that regard as far as picking this one up for $350,000. Pirate, our star of tomorrow to watch in this week's segment. Again, Jeff saying count on somebody from Del Mar this time next week. Okay, our star of tomorrow we've talked about. Let's talk about a star of yesteryear who unfortunately passed away in recent days, that being Funny Side, the winner of the 2003 Kentucky Derby and Preakness Stakes. Jeff, Funny Side passed away at the age of 23. He was born in 2000, of course, part of that 2003 crop where his Triple Crown was thwarted at Belmont on a rainy day. I stood next to Richard Migliore and we watched the race. He said, too soon, Jose, as he made the front a little bit early. And then, of course, Empire Maker was the horse who would go on and thwart that Triple Crown bid. Funny Side would go on to win as a 4-year-old in the Jockey Club Gold Cup and really cement his legacy beyond just kind of a 1 or 2 hit wonder as one of the geldings that is as popular as any horse that we've seen in the last 20 years. Let's go back and take a look at his signature win in the Preakness Stakes with Dave Rodman's local call. I like to use the local calls on some of these sometimes because you may have watched it on television and you've got the Tom Durkin call. But a lot of times the local call is one that sneaks by in history. Yeah. And Dave Rodman's call here from Pimlico back in the 2003 Preakness Stakes.
And the stage is set. 3/8 of a mile left to go. Funny Side comes to the neck of Peace Rules, and they're on even terms midway around that turn at the real Midway Road. Scrimshaw right there, the white blinkers extreme outside with a quarter to go at Pimlico. Funny Side has taken over and taken command in the Preakness. Funny Side down the stretch, 3 lengths clear. Now Scrimshaw trying to rally up outside, climbing second. Peace Rules, Midway Road is next, followed by New York Hero, and there's a furlong to go, and it's Funny Side. The courageous Funny Side is pulling away in a dominant performance. 2 down, 1 to go. It's Funny Side destroying the field. Midway Road was second.
Ooh. As hard fought as the win was against Empire Maker in the Derby, he couldn't have looked any better or done it any easier at Pimlico.
I tell you, I did not like him at all in the Derby and was really kind of disappointed that he won because I was wrong. It's all about me, right? Sure. But then I went and covered that race for HRTV and saw that race live. It was the second Preakness that I had seen. The only other one I had seen was the one that our horse, Captain Baja, was in 97. So this one I was covering. And I remember just being literally blown away, almost blown away off the Pimlico top deck there, the roof where I was standing and watching it because it was so impressive. I think the official margin was something like 11 lengths or something. But so all of a sudden, a horse I did not like at all because I didn't think he could win the Derby based on his defeat in the Wood. Now all of a sudden, I'm in love with this horse because I was I was racing for him, but I was also working as a journalist and I was looking for a good story. Well, he was a good story, as you know. And so then and of course, now we have the Triple Crown at stake. Not only that, but he was a gelding. So that means they weren't going to retire him anytime soon. Mm-hmm. And then I was heartbroken when he lost the Belmont in the mud. And I will say this, I never really could get in line with him, but when I wanted him to win, he didn't. When I didn't want him to win, he won. So I didn't know what to think of him. But he was such a special horse. And I know that you had some contact with the people as well. What a great story for racing at the time. And, he was very, very popular, even to the day of his death, with people who loved to visit him and pet him and do all the kind of things that you would do with a pet horse like that.
Yeah, I mean, funny side, just this popular horse in Saratoga. We talk about this time of year. I mean, he was an upstate New York horse, Sackett's Harbor. If you stay at the Residence Inn in Saratoga, and that's our hotel of choice for our family for a couple decades now, every single room in the Residence Inn of Saratoga is decorated with Funny Side memorabilia. There's pictures of him in the sales ring. There's pictures of him on the racetrack. He is just, Mr. Saratoga beyond 4-Star Dave, right? Since 4-Star Dave. And so extremely popular up that part of the year, that part of the state. I had a chance to spend some time with the connections right before the Belmont Stakes. We were staying in the same hotel. We're watching the NBC Nightly News, ABC World News tonight. It was a watch party between all of the Saratoga stable people, and I just happened to be a guy who went for a beer and a popcorn in the hotel at the time, and there was nobody else there because it was 6 o'clock on an afternoon, Belmont week. And so they asked me to join their table, and the priest from Sackett's Harbor actually made the trip from their hometown to El Monte. And we were near Aqueduct at the time is where the hotel was, by JFK. He blessed the popcorn, he blessed the beers, and we all watched, Peter Jennings and whoever else talk about Funny Side on the national news. We wrote a story about that for ESPN.com. Back at that time, I was writing for ESPN. You can still Google and search that out, but it was a lot of fun to spend times, and they won me over as well because I wasn't a big fan of the horse going into it, but you had to fall in love with the story, the school bus, everything as they got closer to the Triple Crown. But great people. It was fun to hang out with them back then. It's fun to reminisce now with the passing of Funny Side, but one of the most popular horses. And if not for Smarty Jones, probably a year later, he might even be more popular in the national eye because his popularity kind of got snuffed within like 365 days. Now came another horse who was even further up the tracks, off the tracks, from the wrong side of the tracks, as Sports Illustrated called Smarty Jones. So to get those two horses in back-to-back crops like that were so special, that were so blue collar, they were just almost too close to each other for each one of them to maybe get the attention they deserve. But certainly Funny Side, we remember him as he passed away this week at the age of 23. That's our bonus topic for this week on It's Official. We'll be back to give you 5 more topics next week. Our 5 topics this week on the board are now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. The Graveyard Smash favorites lost 6 of 7 major stakes races at Saratoga to open the 2023 summer. Across the pond, we found 2 stars when the sprint ranks and the 2-year-old ranks. Across the pond, it was the Justify Colt, City of Troy, the 2-year-old to watch for Aiden O'Brien. And in the turf sprint ranks, Shaquille did it again from off the pace. We're not quite sure who's going to show up at the Jersey Shore on Saturday. Will it be Mage? We don't know, but Arabian Night could go favorite for Bob Baffert in his absence in the Haskell Stakes. Our Breeders' Cup tracker looks at the comeback of Nest this weekend in the Chevy. And our star of tomorrow is Pirate, a half-brother to Preakness winner, National Treasure, for Todd Pletcher, a debut winner at Saratoga. We're going to do it all again in 7 days' time. Good Lord willing. We don't make any guarantees anymore that we're going to be back here next week, but we're back and healthy and ready to go, and it's great to be back here this week. Jeff and I will return on Friday to do our regular handicapping podcast. That's also been on hiatus for a couple weeks, but we'll be back for the First Call podcast on Friday as we will handicap Haskell weekend, Saratoga opening weekend at Del Mar. Jeff, we're going to have a lot of fun this Friday.
We will. And again, a reminder, I'll be doing the full card analysis for both Del Mar and Saratoga. You can find that at expressbet.com, free as always. So take advantage of that, and also take advantage of the great library of workouts we have for Saratoga and Del Mar based runners. Again, free of charge. Go to xbtv.com and don't just read about workouts, watch them. Formulate your own opinion. It's great, a great handicapping tool.
We'll be back. Take a look at what we've got for you coming up over the next week, and Jeff and I will return with a recap of that on Tuesday.